Everybody who dies will hear a sound. I know this because I've been there. I've crossed that threshold between life and death, and I've returned to tell you what awaits on the other side. What I discovered wasn't just beautiful, it was a revelation that changed everything I thought I knew about existence, consciousness, and our place in the infinite cosmos. Everyone who dies will hear a sound. I know this because I've been there. I crossed that threshold between life and death and returned to tell what awaits me on the other side. What I discovered was not just beautiful, it was a revelation that changed everything I thought I knew about existence, consciousness, and our place in the infinite cosmos. My name is Michael Thompson, and this is my journey beyond the sky. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon in Portland, Oregon. I was 62 years old, sitting in a hospital wheelchair, awaiting what I thought was a routine procedure. The irony was not lost on me. After decades of meditation practice, after years of study with a spiritual master who initiated me into the ancient wisdom traditions in the 1970s, I was about to experience the ultimate teaching in the most unexpected way. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon in Portland, Oregon. I was 62 years old, sitting in a hospital wheelchair, waiting for what I thought would be a routine procedure. The irony wasn't lost on me. After decades of meditation practice, after years of studying under a spiritual master who had initiated me into ancient wisdom traditions back in the 1970s, I was about to experience the ultimate teaching in the most unexpected way. The transition came without warning, without drama. One moment I was conscious in that sterile hospital corridor, the next moment silence. Not the absence of sound, but a profound, living silence that seemed to contain all possibilities. My body simply stopped. My heart ceased its rhythm. My breath departed like a gentle whisper, and yet I remained. I remained more present, more aware, more alive than I had ever been in my physical form. The first sensation was weightlessness, not the weightlessness of space, but something far more profound. It was the weightlessness of spirit, finally freed from the dense matter that had housed it for 6 decades. I felt myself lifting, rising, expanding beyond the confines of flesh and bone, beyond the limitations I had accepted as reality for so long. And then I heard it, the sound that every dying person hears, though most forget it upon return. It was music, but not music as we know it on earth. Imagine if every beautiful melody ever composed, every perfect harmony ever sung, every celestial note ever struck, all came together in one magnificent symphony that resonated not just in your ears, but in every cell of your being, every fiber of your soul. This wasn't background music to my experience. This was the very fabric of existence itself, vibrating with frequencies that spoke directly to consciousness. I understood in that moment that sound is the fundamental creative force of the universe, and this divine music was the original word from which all reality springs forth. As I ascended through what I can only describe as a tunnel of living light, the music grew richer, more complex, more beautiful. The walls of this passage weren't solid. They were made of pure luminescence that seemed to breathe with intelligence. Colors beyond the visible spectrum danced and swirled around me, each hue carrying its own meaning, its own message of love and welcome. But it was when I emerged from this tunnel that the real wonder began. I found myself in a landscape that defied all earthly comparison. Picture gardens of unimaginable beauty, with trees that seemed to sing with inner light, their leaves rustling with melodies that spoke to the heart. Crystal-clear streams flowed upward as easily as downward, their waters alive with consciousness, responding to thought, reflecting not just light, but pure understanding. The air itself, if you could call it air, was alive. It sparkled with microscopic points of light that I somehow knew were thoughts, emotions, prayers from countless souls across the universe. Everything was interconnected. Everything was alive. Everything was sacred. And then came the most startling revelation of all. My consciousness had expanded beyond anything I had ever imagined possible. On Earth, we struggled to understand one another, to communicate our deepest thoughts and feelings. But here, in this realm of pure spirit, I could perceive the thoughts and emotions of other beings as clearly as I could see the light around me. Telepathy wasn't a supernatural gift here. It was as natural as breathing had been in my physical body. I could feel the joy, the love, the wisdom of countless souls around me, and they could feel mine. We were separate beings, yet we were part of one infinite consciousness, drops in an ocean of pure awareness that somehow maintained our individual identity while uniting us in perfect understanding. It was during this expansion of awareness that I began to recognize familiar presences approaching me. These weren't beings with physical bodies as we understand them, but luminous forms radiating wisdom and compassion. As they drew near, I felt a profound recognition stirring within me. These were the guides, the teachers, the masters I had read about in ancient texts, the very beings my earthly guru had prepared me to meet through decades of meditation and spiritual practice. One presence in particular drew close to me, and I felt immediately that this was a master I had known before, not just in dreams or meditation, but in some deeper way that transcended time and space. Without words, he communicated to me that this was not our first meeting, that he had been guiding my spiritual journey for lifetimes, waiting for this moment when I would be ready to receive the deeper teachings. "Welcome home," his presence conveyed, though no words were spoken. "You have been a good student, Michael. Now you are ready to understand what you have been preparing for all these years." He led me to what I can only describe as a cosmic viewing chamber, a space where the very fabric of existence became transparent, where I could see the intricate workings of reality itself. Here, spread out before me like a vast living mandala, was my entire life, not just this current lifetime, but all of them, stretching back through countless incarnations, each one connected to the next like pearls on an invisible string. But this wasn't the judgmental life review that some near-death experiences describe. This was something far more beautiful and profound. It was education, pure and simple. I was being shown the magnificent pattern of my soul's evolution, the way each lifetime had built upon the previous ones, how every joy and sorrow, every triumph and failure had contributed to the magnificent being I was becoming. I watched myself as a child in this current life, growing up in suburban Denver, Colorado, feeling different from other kids, drawn to books about Eastern philosophy and mysticism that I couldn't fully understand, but somehow knew were important. I saw my teenage years when I first encountered meditation and felt that electric recognition of coming home to something I had always known. And then I witnessed the pivotal moment in my early 20s when I met my teacher, a quiet man who had spent decades in India studying under realized masters, who recognized something in me that I couldn't yet see in myself. I watched our first meeting, saw how he looked into my eyes, and simply nodded, as if confirming something he had long expected. "You have been called," he had said that day, words that had puzzled me then but now made perfect sense. The seeds were planted long ago. Now they are ready to sprout. Under his guidance, I had learned to meditate deeply, to quiet the constant chatter of the mind and access subtler realms of consciousness. I had studied the ancient wisdom traditions, Vedanta, Buddhism, the mystical teachings of various cultures that all pointed toward the same eternal truths. I had practiced pranayama, the control of life force through breath, learning to direct energy through invisible channels in my spiritual body. All of this preparation, I now understood, had been leading to this moment, this direct experience of the truths I had only read about and glimpsed in deep meditation. My guide began to explain what I was seeing, his teachings flowing directly into my consciousness without the need for words or concepts. He showed me how karma actually works, not as punishment or reward, but as a sophisticated educational system designed to help consciousness evolve toward perfect understanding. Every thought, every action, every choice I had ever made had created ripples in the fabric of existence. These ripples moved outward, affecting other souls, other situations, and then inevitably returned to me, bringing exactly the experiences I needed to learn whatever lesson my soul was ready to receive. Nothing was random, nothing was wasted. Every experience was precisely calibrated to offer maximum growth with minimum suffering. I saw how this principle extended far beyond individual lives. I watched the intricate dance of souls choosing to incarnate together, lifetime after lifetime, playing different roles for each other, sometimes parent and child, sometimes teacher and student, sometimes adversaries who push each other toward growth through conflict and challenge. The Master showed me how reincarnation isn't a cycle of endless repetition, but a spiral of ever-increasing consciousness. Each time a soul returns to physical existence, it carries forward all the wisdom gained in previous lives, even if that wisdom remains largely unconscious. We don't start over. We continue from exactly where we left off, building on foundations laid in countless previous existences. Earth, he explained, is one of many schools in the cosmic university. Souls incarnate there to learn specific lessons that can only be learned in a realm of apparent separation, where the unity of all existence is veiled, so that consciousness can experience the joy of rediscovering its true nature. But what amazed me most was learning about the incredible organization and structure of the spiritual realms. Far from being a vague, ethereal space where souls float aimlessly, the afterlife was revealed to be a vast, complex, magnificently ordered universe, with its own laws, its own hierarchies, its own purposes and functions. My guide showed me different levels or planes of existence, each vibrating at its own frequency, each serving its own function in the grand design of cosmic evolution. The physical plane, where I had spent my recent lifetime, was just the densest, slowest, vibrating level of reality. Beyond it were the astral planes, realms of emotion, desire, and personal will, where souls often reside between incarnations, working through unresolved issues and preparing for their next earthly journey. Beyond the astral were the causal planes, realms of pure intelligence and spiritual understanding, where the great masters dwell, where the fundamental laws governing existence are formulated and administered. These beings weren't distant gods ruling from on high, but evolved souls who had graduated from the lower schools of existence and now served as teachers and guides for those still climbing the ladder of consciousness. The scope and scale of it all was breathtaking. My earthly life, which had seemed so important and dramatic while I was living it, was revealed to be like a single day in elementary school compared to the vast curriculum of spiritual education that stretched across eons and dimensions. But perhaps the most profound revelation came when my guide began to show me how the ancient wisdom traditions of Earth, particularly the Eastern teachings I had studied for so many years, were actually direct transmissions from these higher realms. The great masters who had founded these traditions, Buddha, Krishna, Lao Tzu, and countless others, had themselves traveled these same spiritual paths, had received these same teachings, and had then incarnated on Earth specifically to share what they had learned. The meditation techniques I had practiced, the philosophical concepts I had studied, the moral principles I had tried to live by, all of these were not human inventions, but precise spiritual technologies developed by advanced beings to help incarnated souls remember their true nature and accelerate their journey home to the source. I saw how the concept of chakras, the energy centers I had worked with in meditation, corresponded to actual spiritual organs that every soul possesses, and how the practices of pranayama and yoga were designed to activate and purify these centers. The mantras I had chanted were revealed to be sound formulas that resonated with specific frequencies in the cosmic symphony I could now hear all around me. Everything I had been taught, everything I had experienced in my spiritual practice, was now revealed as preparation for this direct knowing, this immediate experience of the truths that had been hidden behind symbols and concepts. My guide then led me to what he called the Akashic Records, a cosmic library where every thought, action, and experience of every soul throughout all time was preserved in living detail. Unlike the static records we might imagine, these were dynamic, interactive, holographic experiences that could be accessed and explored by consciousness. Here I learned the principle of direct knowing that operates in the spiritual realms. On Earth, we learn through study, through accumulating information bit by bit, building concepts and theories that approximate truth. But in the higher dimensions, knowledge isn't acquired. It's directly transmitted, immediately absorbed, instantly integrated. I found that simply by focusing my attention on any question or area of interest, complete understanding would flow into my consciousness like water pouring into an empty vessel. I could know the history of entire civilizations, understand the deepest mysteries of existence, comprehend the intricate relationships between all aspects of creation, not through years of study, but through moments of pure reception. This wasn't just information transfer, it was transformation. Each new understanding changed me, elevated my consciousness, expanded my capacity to receive even deeper truths. I felt myself becoming more than I had ever been, growing in wisdom and compassion at a rate that would have taken countless lifetimes to achieve through normal earthly experience. But the most overwhelming experience came when my guide brought me into the presence of what I can only call the Source itself, the ultimate consciousness from which all existence springs, the divine ground of being that the mystics of every tradition have sought to describe, but which can only be known directly. This wasn't a personal God, as many religions conceive, but rather the very essence of existence itself, pure, infinite, unconditional love, expressing itself as infinite creativity, infinite intelligence, infinite bliss. I felt myself merging with this presence, becoming one with it while somehow maintaining my individual awareness. In that union, I understood that everything, every soul, every star, every particle of matter, every wave of energy was this same divine consciousness playing countless roles in an infinite cosmic drama. We weren't separate beings trying to find God. We were God experiencing itself from countless perspectives, learning about its own infinite nature through the experiences of all its creations. The love I felt in that moment transcended any earthly experience of love. It was unconditional, unlimited, eternal, the very force that holds the universe together, that drives the evolution of consciousness, that calls every soul home to the recognition of its true divine nature. I don't know how long I remained in that state of union. Time had no meaning there, existing only as another dimension that consciousness could explore at will. But gradually, I became aware that this transcendent experience was coming to an end, that I was being called back to continue my earthly journey. My guide explained that while I had been given this glimpse of ultimate reality, my mission in physical form wasn't yet complete. There were still lessons to learn, still service to render, still souls to help awaken to their own divine nature. The knowledge and experience I had gained here wouldn't be lost. It would remain as an inner knowing that would guide and inspire the remainder of my earthly life. But more than that, I was being sent back as a bridge between worlds, someone who could speak from direct experience about the continuity of consciousness, the reality of the soul's journey, the magnificent destiny that awaits every being. The fear of death that plagued so many people was based on ignorance of what death actually is, not an ending, but a graduation, not a loss, but a return to our true home. The return to my physical body was gentle but profound. I felt myself descending through layers of increasingly dense vibration, feeling the familiar weight and limitation of matter settling around my consciousness like a well-worn coat. The cosmic symphony faded to a whisper, though I could still detect its subtle harmonies if I listened carefully. The expanded awareness contracted, though it retained access to wisdom that had never existed in my earthly mind before. When I opened my eyes in that hospital room, the doctors and nurses gathered around me were amazed. I had been clinically dead for nearly 12 minutes. No heartbeat, no brain activity, no signs of life. They called it a miracle that I had returned with no apparent damage, no memory loss, no impairment of any kind. But I knew it wasn't a miracle in the way they understood it. It was simply the natural functioning of a cosmos far more magnificent and purposeful than most people imagine. I had been given a glimpse behind the curtain, a direct experience of the truth that every genuine spiritual tradition has tried to convey. We are immortal beings of light, temporarily playing at being human, and death is nothing more than taking off a costume at the end of a play. The transformation in my daily life has been profound and ongoing. Meditation, which had always been a discipline and a practice, became as natural as breathing, a constant awareness of the deeper dimensions of existence that underlie every moment of ordinary experience. The fears, anxieties, and petty concerns that once troubled me simply dissolved in the light of what I now knew to be true. My relationships deepened as I began to see every person I encountered as a fellow soul on the same eternal journey, playing their chosen role in the cosmic drama with courage and dedication, even when they themselves had forgotten their divine nature. Conflicts and disagreements became opportunities for greater understanding rather than sources of stress or separation. The material aspects of life, career, possessions, social status, took their proper place as temporary props in the current scene of my soul's education, important for the lessons they provided, but no longer sources of ultimate meaning or security. I found myself naturally orienting toward service, toward helping others awaken to their own spiritual potential, toward being a clear channel for the wisdom and love I had experienced in those transcendent moments. But perhaps the most significant change has been the complete disappearance of the fear of death, not because I'm eager to die, but because I know with absolute certainty that what we call death is simply a doorway to expanded life, heightened awareness, deeper understanding. The body will eventually wear out, as all physical forms must, but the consciousness that I truly am is eternal, indestructible, ever evolving toward greater expressions of love and wisdom. I often think about that sound, the divine music that every dying person hears, even if they don't remember it upon return. It's playing constantly, in every moment, in every dimension of existence. We don't have to wait until death to hear it. It's available right now to anyone willing to quiet their mind, open their heart, and listen with the ears of the soul. The ancient traditions I studied for so many years have taken on new depth and meaning. When I read the Bhagavad Gita now, I recognize the direct teachings of realized masters speaking from their own experience of these higher realms. When I practice meditation, I'm not just following techniques I learned from books. I'm remembering methods that I experienced firsthand in dimensions beyond the physical. The Buddha's teaching about the cessation of suffering makes perfect sense when you've experienced the realm where suffering doesn't exist. The Vedantic concept of Brahman, the one infinite reality appearing as the many, becomes not just a philosophical idea, but a lived truth. The Taoist understanding of the way as the natural flow of existence becomes as obvious as the circulation of blood in your veins. This is what I want to share with everyone who will listen. The spiritual path isn't about believing in something we hope might be true. It's about remembering what we've always known but temporarily forgotten. The practices, the teachings, the traditions, they're all pointing toward the same direct experience that awaits every one of us. You don't have to take my word for any of this. The truth I'm speaking about isn't dependent on faith or belief. It's as real and discoverable as gravity or electricity. The techniques exist, tested and refined by thousands of practitioners across centuries. The teachers are available, both incarnate and discarnate, ready to guide anyone sincere in their seeking. Most importantly, you don't have to wait until death to begin exploring these dimensions of existence. Consciousness is already infinite, already divine, already connected to the source of all existence. The only thing that prevents us from knowing this directly is the habitual focus on the physical world that keeps our attention locked in the densest level of reality. Every moment of meditation, every act of selfless service, every choice to respond with love rather than fear takes us one step closer to the conscious recognition of our true nature. We're already home. We just need to remember where we are. The sound that every dying person hears is calling to us right now in this moment, inviting us to wake up from the dream of separation and recognize our unity with all existence. It's the song of our own deepest self, welcoming us back to the truth we never actually left. We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, and the experience continues eternally, growing richer and more beautiful with each passing moment of consciousness. Death is not the end of the story. It's simply the turning of a page in an infinitely long book of awakening. This is the message I was sent back to share, the truth that transformed my understanding of existence itself. We are loved beyond measure, supported beyond imagination, and destined for a glory that our earthly minds can barely conceive. The journey doesn't end with the death of the body. It's just beginning. Listen carefully in the quiet moments between thoughts, between breaths, between heartbeats. Can you hear it? That eternal music, that divine sound that's been calling you home since the beginning of time. It's there, waiting for you to remember, waiting for you to step consciously into the magnificent adventure of awakening. If this message has touched something deep within you, if you felt the recognition of truth, speaking to truth, then you're ready to begin or deepen your own journey of discovery. Share this video with others who might be ready to hear it. Subscribe to continue receiving these transmissions from beyond the veil. And remember, you are so much more than you know, so much more powerful than you've been taught, so much more loved than you've ever dared to imagine. The sound that calls every soul home is calling you right now. Are you ready to listen?